Hi, I'm CJ and this is my RC channel. In this video I'm going to be talking about the VTA body and some of the rules. One of the restrictions is that you must have an interior with a driver figure in the car. This is basically a clear plastic. It's originally made by Bolink. It's a name you don't hear much in RC anymore. And I did a, semi decent job of painting it and then kind of screwed it up at the tail end. Yeah, it didn't go quite as planned, but it's good enough certainly for what we're doing here. And I basically trimmed the edges off of this so it would fit, and I had to cut away some areas so that my rear body posts would fit in here. Now, what I used to glue this in place is body armor by Deluxe Materials, and this is my first time using this. It's supposedly for protecting, reinforcing, and repairing plastic model car bodies. Impact resistance, safe on paint. So, seems to do nicely. What I am going to do now, though, that I've got this glued in here is, and the way I did this, since I don't have pictures for you or anything, I basically took a couple of battery packs in their fireproof bags like this, and I put one under the trunk area and one under the nose, so it was propped up like this. And then I used a handful more of them to place on top of this insert here to keep it pressed into the body. Made sure I had it positioned how I wanted it. Before I did that, though, I laid it in place, made sure it was positioned, and then used a marker to make scribe an outline, so I knew that once I had glue on here, or it's more like a silicone sealant, that I would be able to visually know that I was lined up. And so here is the final result that you can see from various angles. Came out nice, certainly does the job. It's not a great paint job to say the least, but it's acceptable. And I did end up having to take the black paint off the windows because I blacked them out just kind of out of habit. And the way I did that, because some of you I know are going to be curious, I used this product. It's called Polycarbonate Body Cleaner. And it's not just a cleaner like you're, wiping off a dirty surface. This will take off multiple layers of cured Tamiya paint. And well, I assume other polysafe paints as well. Normally when I get this stuff, I buy at least 2 bottles at a time because you're shipping them from Asia. Usually I don't know anybody who stocks it in the US. Occasionally you can find it on eBay or on Amazon, but this is a godsend. And I don't just mean for like getting paint off large areas. I used it many times during the process of painting the interior here. For example, a lot of times I was using paint like these, which is Tamiya paints, and I was also using these, which are Craft Smart paint pens, and these are kind of neat. Let me pull one that I don't think I've used yet. Yeah, okay, see, you've got this absorbent tip, and you can actually pull that, and what you do is you press it down till it compresses completely, like against, I used a notepad, cheap notepad, so that I could tear the pages off and toss them after I'd marked them up thoroughly, because you don't want to get other paint colors into this tip. So you push it down, shake it a bit, push it down, and eventually the paint runs down and fills this absorbent tip. And then you can paint with it like you would with a magic marker. And when it starts not producing enough, you know, paint, you just press the tip down again. Sometimes I would do it on the surface of the body piece. Sometimes I would just do it on a notepad to freshen it up. You can already see that there's a little bit of paint dripping down there since I did press it once. Anyway, these work great for getting into tight spots and doing detail-like paint work. Also, I have some very fine brushes that I used. And when you make mistakes, the best way to deal with mistakes, I find, like I've gone, you know, a little bit outside the lines, or I, you know, slipped and jumped and I don't have a straight edge that I want, or even close to a straight edge. You know, you've really gone off where you wanted to go. I'll take these little paint like Q-tips. They're Craft Cotton Swabs by Tamiya, item number 87141. And sometimes if I'm got a large issue to deal with, I'll use a regular, just a standard Q-tip. But these are smaller by at least 50%, and they're much tighter. And they are great. You just dip them into this poly cleaner and clean your mistake. And just make sure that when you're doing it, you've got the surface angled in a way that if there's any excess of the cleaner that gets squeezed off the tip of the swab, it doesn't run into the paint. It runs away from the area that you're wanting to save. But if you don't use it too fast and you're sparing with it, really isn't a problem. It's a great way to fix little mistakes and without having to totally clean the paint and repaint from scratch. It's almost like an eraser. So those are some of the things I use and the techniques I use. Now, when I was cleaning the windows, I was using large Q-tips to get around the edge, and for the large areas, I was taking sheets of paper towel. I'd cut or tear a piece about this big, fold it up into a swab about the size of a large postage stamp, maybe 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches, at least 3 layers thick, and then just, you know, swab the area. And once the towel got saturated with paint, you know, flip it inside out once, do it again, and then toss it and get another one, and just keep going until all the paint was removed. And it was, you know, quite easy to really clean around the windows. I even left a little bit of paint up here, like a tint line on a windshield. But as you can see, the side windows are nicely cleaned off without any real issues. The rear window got some of that glue on it, unfortunately, and it wasn't as easy to get perfectly clear because I had some stickers on it and I didn't want to lose those. Some of the paint came through these holes. I should have taped them from the back side when I started the process, but that cleaner is pretty brutal. It probably would have eaten the tape anyway, and it would have come unstuck. But anyway, you know, these bodies don't really have to be perfect. They're not for show, and you're lucky if you get a season out of them. You know, the way the cars are banging and bashing into each other. I mean, I saw one guy drive over another guy's car. They ran into each other. The car drove up onto the car, and he just goosed it and drove off the guy without any concern to what damage he might do to the other person's car. People get pretty hot when they're in race mode. Some do. So you know, you don't expect your bodies to last forever, or you know, any real length of time at all, actually. The main thing is to take care of them. So anyway, now my next step in completing this is to further anchor this driver's compartment into the body, because with crashes and bashing and banging, this could conceivably come loose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take trusty body reamer, and these are metric plastic screws. I originally got these to have some of these flat heads for doing wing mounting on airplanes, but I have found many uses for them along the way. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of these little shorties here, which are probably hard to see. They're probably M3, but these little guys. And I'm gonna put 3 of them here, here, and here to anchor down the front edge. I'll probably do 2 back here and 1 on either of these 2 tabs. And that should assure that the body stays in place, even if it gets, you know, bashed up pretty good out on the track. Even if the glue starts coming loose, it's not going to fall off altogether, get into the gearing or anything and cause any problems. So that is going to be the last stop. There's no point in showing you visually, like having you watch me auger holes in this and put in screws. But I will show you the after effect, as it were. So I'm going to go ahead and pause up. So I changed my mind about the bolts being plastic. I started with 1, and I couldn't get it tight enough without starting to strip the threads. And I wanted these to be really tight. I wanted them to really clamp the Lexan. So I went with some M3 aluminum hardware and steel nuts. I did not use lock nuts because there's more metal, more weight. Weight really isn't a problem because these cars have a weight minimum, which because of the nature of the chassis I'm using, I'm probably going to have to add some weight anyway. But I still didn't want to waste lock nuts on something as mundane as this. So I used just regular steel nuts, and I used a generous amount of Loctite because I don't expect I'm ever going to have to take these off. This is not a disassemble and repair kind of item. When it's trash, it's trash. So anyway, and I can still get them off if I really need to. I just used a lot of Loctite to make sure that they weren't going to loosen up on me at some point. So otherwise, body is complete with the exception of numbers. I need a number on the hood and on each door. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint from the outside on the numbers, almost as if they were like a sticker that was added on after the fact. Because we're trying to go period specific, and I've already painted, so I would have to like, you know, clean a space off to do it anyway and then reshoot, and it would be a nightmare. So what I'm going to do is just take some stenciling material. I'm going to make a circle. I'm going to stick one on each area, shoot it real quick, just single coat of probably black or something to contrast. I don't want to use white since I've got white stripes already. And then I'll do a contrasting color number, probably the number in white. So I'm probably going to go like blue or black for the circle for the number. And that'll be that. So the body will be all ready to race next weekend. I am going to do some testing this week. I want to go to that same parking lot where I ran this earlier and showed you how it was driving. I'm sure I mentioned it, but in case you haven't seen the video, I was getting some oversteer, and I'd rather the car be neutral or close to it. I don't mind a little oversteer. I like driving a car that's a little loose, but I don't want it to be too loose. So I want to try to adjust until the car starts to push, so I know where that line is with the suspension setup. And so I changed springs. I went 2 grades softer for the rear spring, and I went with a softer rear sway bar. I will test that, see how that runs. If I'm still getting rear slide, now that doesn't mean rear slide with excessive power. That can almost always happen. But you want to be able to like drive in a circle like you're driving on a skid pad and go a little faster until it starts either breaking away in the rear or pushing the front. And I want to get it to the point where it like starts to push the front or just starts sliding out sideways. And then I'll probably back off a little bit on the tuning to give it a little bit of rear end, because I'd rather if I'm racing hard and I start, you know, I don't want to say driving angry, but if I'm pushing harder than just a nice smooth pace, I'd rather have the car slide the rear on me because I can catch that and correct it, versus if it pushes, I'm going to run off a corner as opposed to just looping in the corner. And that's harder to recover from, generally ends up having to go into reverse, things like that. Whereas if it starts washing out, I can usually just drive out of it once the slide stops, or hopefully I can steer into the slide, catch it, and, you know, get in control of my emotions again. If you noticed, I bent the antenna tube back here. That was kind of necessary because of having this interior in here. The other option would have been to find some other way of running the antenna altogether, and I didn't see any feasible way to do that. This is going to be just fine. What I did was I just used a propane lighter like this. It's almost like a blowtorch, and just kind of kissed it, you know, with the flame, and it immediately starts to soften and almost bubble, and then just bent it and let it harden, and then did it again in several spots just to get a nice kind of curvature going here. So that is going to work just fine. The antenna doesn't necessarily need to be sticking up. It just, you don't want it like coiled or something. You want it laid out so that you've got something to get signal. So, and at the kind of distances the car is going away from me on a track environment, it's almost not necessary. The car is doing great. Next weekend will be, if it doesn't rain or something like that, will be the first time I race this. So I'm really looking forward to that. I did buy a second set of wheels and tires the other day. Just thought I'd show you. So, again, Protoform is the only company that makes wheels and tires for VTA. They used to be made by a different company, as I recall, and the company that made them either got bought or they, when they disbanded, they turned over the manufacturing process to Protoform, one way or the other. Protoform now is the manufacturer of the only wheels and tires you can use for VTA. They all come pre-mounted, so you can't modify the foams or anything like that. You're required to race on these wheels and tires. That's one of the things that kind of limits the class to certain speed level, just like, you know, the slower motors, things like that. It also helps keep it look period specific as far as appearances. As you can see, it is the same style rim. There's at least one other style of spokes. But they are available in white and black. And of course you have the two sizes, the rear size and the front size. So just in the event, if you are going to get into this, I definitely recommend at least getting 2 pairs, because toward the end of the season, as people are wearing out a set and start looking for another set, these tend to sell out fast, and they make them in fairly limited runs. You know, they certainly make enough for the hobby, but at the same time, you know, VTA is I'm not going to say it's not an enthusiastically followed class, because it is. Like, more than, you know, it is one of the more popular classes at my club. I can't speak, you know, on a national level, but it certainly is a popular class, if nothing else, just because of the older bodies. People like them, and a lot of the older RC guys like it because it is a class that doesn't require the super razor sharp reaction time of a teenager to be able to be competitive in it, because, you know, because of its limitations, its speed limitations. Becomes more about driver skill. You don't have super gummy tires. You don't have multiple. You don't have slicks, things like that. It all goes to making not only a level playing field, but a milder playing field. So it's a ton of fun, and I hope some of you guys will get into it. If you are, if you do run VTA or you're thinking about it, feel free to comment. Ask me any questions you got. I know at least one place on the description of at least one of the videos, I put a link to where the rules are. But if I didn't, all you got to do is Google, just Google VTA RC cars, and you'll find the association that you know, makes the rules for VTA, and they haven't changed in, you know, pretty much since they were made. This class has been around for a long time. You know, as you can see that the tires, you know, when the company that used to make them, you know, was either going out of business or got bought, the new company continued on. Someone continued making them. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please click like and please subscribe to my channel.